Hey guys, this is Pedro back with another interview covering the VCT. No, this is not a usual interview for one of the international leagues, or no, this is not myself covering another title. This is just me doing a usual long form interview with a given member of the Valorant team. As for exactly who this person is, who my latest guest is for this occasion, it is none other than TDAWGG. For those of you who are not familiar with his uh, uh, um, career so far in this title. He's the current IGL for Cubert Academy, aka the Sentinels Academy team in the Tier-2 of North American Valorant. So I have him here for a quick conversation regarding his current whereabouts and what he's been doing so far in recent times. So TDAWGG, Mr. Dog, thank you so much for the opportunity for this conversation. It's fair to say that I first caught wind of you from your videos in the YouTube, doing analysis videos, analysis pieces of major matches within the VCT last year.
Mhm.
And so it's a pleasure to have you here. And so what I want to start off with regarding that this conversation is the YouTube. I mean, you've already been doing this like some time before you took a clear focus at the end of 2024, mid of 2024. But still, I gotta ask you, what kind of made you want to pivot to that direction, just making a lot of videos for your YouTube and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that it's this dual factor of like educational and like entertainment, where I do think that I have a pretty good read and understanding on the game. I like watching the game. I like talking about the game. I like teach people about the game. So it's like a cool opportunity where I could do both. I try to stay away from like the monotone breakdown where I drag things around on Valaplan and explain, to people how the game works like they don't really know. And I try to add my own kind of like flair, I guess. And it just comes with like my personality, just trying to make light out of some situations, crack some jokes at the pros and stuff like that. And it's definitely been really fun. I like making them. I'm gonna have more coming back as well.
I do understand that you've not been able to make a lot of videos in recent times because of what you're doing right now in Sentinels Academy, Cubert Academy. But like, how did you kind of view more so your research or more so your analysis? What's your general approach when it comes to making these types of analysis videos? And on top of just that, what do you feel is the main focus for you when it comes to making such analysis?
Mm. Well, I'd say that my time as a player is the main thing that gives me an advantage of this. So not only am I playing IGL, but again, like I have this aspect that a lot of people can't really formulate, where they can look at the screen and they can kind of like see what's wrong or what could have gone better, whatever it is. But I kind of have a little more insight where I might be scrimming these teams. I might be hearing things about these teams. So I kind of like understand maybe just like a little bit of a inner circle type of thing, what is actually going on, why the team actually is playing so good or why they aren't playing so good. So I try to leverage that like a little bit. But yeah, the main thing is just breaking down kind of like the things that people don't really understand from the scoreboard. Things I guess like out of the server is what I try to like include a lot of it as well.
Piggybacking off what you said about the things that people don't understand right then and there, what do you feel the average like player, competitor, or maybe even professional player doesn't really still understand when it comes to analyzing the game from a IGL type of lens?
I would say the idea of disrespect and the idea of disruption. Everybody thinks that if you want, you can just go around the map and you can accomplish whatever you feel like. You can do things perfectly. You can have everybody on the same page at all times. It's not the case at all. When you're playing at the highest level in the game, there are people who are peeking and killing you, punishing you with utility, out kind of like pacing you, where they're accomplishing things over and over and over again while you've only done one thing, maybe two things, whatever it is. So that's like the big aspect. I think it comes with the kind of like level of play that is considered like average, like percentage wise. We see those like charts where it says like, the average is like, gold or like whatever it is. So when you don't have a lot of game experience, let alone like you haven't competed, you don't really understand what it's like to be there in the server, like until you get to that level. You just think that you can just do whatever you want and get away with it without being punished. People don't give stuff up for free.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And then it's also like one part of just having to like have that level of knowledge, because like, on one hand, people can have that kind of knowledge and use that to their advantage, but on the other hand, like, people have that knowledge but they still aren't able to decipher it and 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 put that into actual use. And so it kind of like has it kind of makes a clear, or kind of presents a dynamic in which you can differentiate who is the type of player that you kind of look for, that can
Mm,
like be the type of like IGO, or more so the type of leader for a given team, and also those that aren't able to be in that kind of position at the very least. And so
right.
like, how often did you kind of like see that differentiation regarding the top tier teams within like challengers, tier 1, tier 3, tier 4, and tier 2, all that kind of aspect?
Well, there definitely is a mental aspect about it. So if we're talking in terms of like the IGL and the leader, I think it's like really inappropriate if you ever like lose your touch or your handle on like the emotion. If people see like the leader kind of like shaking or getting upset or getting frustrated, it's going to trickle down and affect everybody else. I try to kind of look at people when they play ranked, see how see how mad, see how frustrated, see how hateful people can become when they're playing ranked, when they're just getting, kind of like shit on by a bunch of like random people, because it kind of goes into the bigger picture of, these guys don't tolerate disrespect. Like they can't handle not being respected. They think that's how they're going to be like treated when they play the game, and when they don't get their way, they kind of just like shut down and can't really like accomplish anything. And I think it's important to take into account when you're playing at the level that they do, where it would be a thing that I would be paying attention to 100%. How hard can we kind of like beat on somebody, bully somebody to where they just kind of like, shut down, and we don't really treat them as an equal.
Mhm. And I'm sure you've gone through those kinds of instances where that kind of dynamic just leads to the disintegration of a team. If I'm not, you can kind of elaborate or kind of correct me there. And so like, and it's also one thing to consider, just sort of the progression of a player like yourself to have to go through these windows for a given team. And so like, amidst all of that chaos, if that's the right way to describe it, how have you been kind of like looking at your own evolution of just managing players and leading players as the IGL? Because like, it'd be fair to say that you've been doing this for quite a while within this title. So in recent times, so like, yeah, how you kind of look at the individual evolution of yourself?
Yeah, it's my third year being in Challengers. I don't necessarily say that like jumping up and down proudly, but I do give myself like credit where it's due. Where I'm still here. Whatever anybody wants to like say about it, I feel like I have progressed and gotten better year after year. And this year, I'm really looking to kind of like cement that status, where it doesn't necessarily not matter what I think, because I know I'm VCT ready. I know I can step up to the stage and get things done with whatever team decides to knock on my door. But it's more so making sure everyone else knows, and setting the tone. But with me leading, I try to be as selfless as I can. I want everybody on my team to succeed and be as comfortable as possible, because I believe that's kind of like how the game should be played, is that people should be catered to a point. I want to make sure that everybody's closest to 100% as they can be. I'm a big energy guy. I'm a big vibe guy. I want to make sure everybody's having fun. It's a huge aspect that people miss out on. They think it's cutthroat serious and everybody is talking like a corporate office. You got to have the jokes, man. You got to have the smiles. You got to have the energy, or it's just too tense and people aren't really like enjoying themselves and playing and kind of like flowing naturally. But I would say that's definitely one of my biggest things, is just the leadership aspect that I bring. the energy, whatever it is, because I do think there are two versions of a quote unquote like in-game leader. There's kind of like a there's someone who can call like a coach's strat book and
Mhm.
exist in that element, and then there's also like a real in-game leader, which I classify myself as. I definitely work on my own stuff. I bring my own stuff. I know what I want to do, how I want to do it. I work with my coaches creating some sort of game plan, approach, whatever it is, to a map, and we execute it.
I mean, like from how I kind of view your approach from your videos, it kind of has me giving the impressions that you're more so like an analytical type of guy, the type of person that would like work more with the coach and go through strategies with the rest of the players and go point A to point B in that kind of fashion. And interesting that you say that you're more so like the kind of Vive guy, Vive merchant, all of that stuff. And like I feel like you're still trying to find the golden ratio regarding both sides of the coin. Do you feel like you at this point kind of found that golden ratio, or do you feel like you're not really there yet?
I really think I'm like getting ready for that like breakthrough, like whatever it is. I will say that sometimes it is day to day, depending on the type of team you're on. When some of my teammates have like a lot of momentum, they're winning a clutch, they're having a really good round, sometimes they'll take over that role and I can focus a little more on just whatever I decide to focus on. But the big thing for me is that it's there and it doesn't dissipate, it doesn't fade away. Doesn't matter if we lose a big round. Doesn't matter if we, choke a situation, whatever it is. It's always 0-0 mentality is what I like to say. You just keep chugging along. Doesn't matter how much you're up or how much you're down. You just got to like keep pushing through that. But finding a balance is like important to to stay calm, stay focused, whatever it is.
No, for sure, for sure. I kind of want to now pivot over into your current team in Cubert Academy because like it's one thing to look at it's a great thing to look at your progression to go like within tier 2 and then finally go into like a team like that and being the likes of Redux and also like having a coach like Dapper. It's a pretty interesting dynamic that you find yourself in, and also like those that you have been also competing regularly with beforehand, like Nismo and Scuba and stuff like that. And so, how has that kind of thing been going for you so far in that team? Given that you just are coming off of finishing fourth place in the stage 1 of NA playoffs, and so yeah, how has that been going so far for you from your point of view?
Um, the main thing that I've talked about like my team with is this like little concept that I created that it's a year for the players over anything. Our team can't ascend. We cannot go to the tournament. We cannot play at the tournament. So I try to pitch us not only to my teammates and myself, but to anyone who asks that we're a VCT level team. I'm not going to sit here and act like we are the best team in the entire world because that's obviously not true. But everybody on my team can go up instantly. They can play at the level. They're ready to go at that level. We aren't a real challengers team per se. We're playing in the league, absolutely. It's not an egotistical thing. It's just a fact of the matter, right? So being that this year is for the players, kind of like by the players, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier about comfort. I want to make sure everybody is doing what they want to do. Whether that's something as simple as an agent, our map pool, the way we're approaching attack, defense, this, that, the other, because I want everybody to look as polished as possible and to make sure that the community completely understands that we are the top 5 people respectively in the role that are ready to go to tier 1, right? It's kind of like a cementing thing for that, where I guess the normal case scenario for that pipeline would be you play really good in the league, you go to the tournament, you win the tournament, and you force yourself into the league. We don't have the ability to do that, right? So all that matters to us is that we crush and beat whoever is, in our path. And with those results, people understand that, that's what it is. You're lucky they weren't at the tournament type thing. And with our finish in stage 1, we were really disappointed. We had a really good team talk after we ended up playing that, and we talked about a lot of things. We're playing like the long con here. We're not looking to cheese or do anything like early on. We should to keep our heads down and keep working and make everything about us and not about anybody else.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that you brought out regarding the presence, or more so, where the team stands within the pecking order of NA challengers, in the sense that like you guys are an academy team and you can't really promote or get promoted or ascend to VCT Americas for the ensuing year. And as you kind of said, is more so just sort of developing the players, because this is a roster that has majority of young guys, with Knights, Redux, and Scuba, I believe, and also like pairing that with yourself and Nismo as like the veterans of the scene. And so, I mean, in the sense that like you guys are knowing or understanding of the fact that you guys can't ascend and having to just more so focus on development, has that kind of been like a major shift that you kind of had to go through as for yourself, given that like you are a competitor and you kind of want to experience the fruits of your labor in the form of like ascension championships and the like?
It does. Um, the last 2 years under Shopify and Core, I had it in the back of my mind that like the major goal was to get to the LAN and play at the LAN. And this year, that dynamic has shifted where the major goal is to put in everything you have. I don't want anybody on my team thinking, "Ah, shit, could have done more. Wish I did that different." No, you're going to talk about it now. You're going to fix it now. You're going to put in all the energy, effort you have now, because if you don't, what? Right? Do you want to repeat this again? Get on another academy team? Get on another challengers team? No. We know what our goal is. We know where we want to be. It's the stage. It's LA with the rest of them. And again, it's not about talking the talk. It's about walking the walk. So that's what we got to do this season.
Given what you said about more so just having players um play their agents and playing like comfortable agents, if that's the appropriate way to say it, how has that progress been like for each of the other guys, and including for yourself in a way, and just having to show them how they should be able to play these kinds of agents, these kinds of matches, on the tier 2 level? How has that dynamic been for yourself and also for the rest of the team, just adapting?
Hearing you say it, I actually am starting to understand that there definitely might be a misunderstanding for like the public eye when I say that, where when I say comfort agents, comfort roles, I don't necessarily mean everybody just kind of like shows me what agent they want to play on the map. It's more so kind of like a verbal confirmation of, can you do this? Can we play that? Whatever it is. Knights on Sentinel is like a big example. Guy was running around on ISO with 30 kills every single game, no matter what, when he's on rankers, and now he's on Sentinel, and he's transitioning to bigger shoes. He has more responsibility than just kind of like running around and messing around. And I think that in a one-to-one comparison with him and Kane Zera, making a decision early on like that will benefit you a lot rather than what Kane Zera is doing right now. Kind of like showing that he's just like playing like the ISO, like the Reyna only. And I'm not knocking him by any means. That guy is a completely gifted player, and I love him. He is insane. But it's kind of like the trajectory of it, right? Where it's like, do you want to get the reps in now of playing Sentinel, playing a different role, learning how to play the game quote unquote properly, or at least like thinking about it in a smart manner rather than the envy approach, or do you want to keep goofing off with your friends and just running around with a shield? So that's definitely the dynamic that myself and like the coaches have like sold to him. At least I think I haven't like fully broken it down for him, but he understands. He's getting up there. A lot of people don't understand this is his first real team. He's never been on a team before, and you load in on a quote unquote VCT like level team. It's a lot of pressure for somebody who's 16 years old, and he's handling it really well, and he's an insane player.
Yeah, interesting that you brought that up, because like for any other player that is in the same shoes as Knights, because like winning an NA Challenger Split 3, and moving on from that to like Cubert Academy, it might like also put their ego at an all-time high level. And and you add that with someone as young as him, 16 to 17 years old, it kind of like what's the appropriate way, it kind of like inflates their understanding of the game, and it inflates their confidence to where they can do no wrong. And it's also important to have him have teammates like yourself and also like Nismo to just kind of keep them grounded. And hearing you talk about that, I want to ask you just sort of how has the challenge been in handling these types of players, in having them stay humble while also letting them do what they can do, or letting them do the things that they are known for doing, because that such is the thing that they got him that got them there.
Right. I've made the mistake in the past where I kind of like force a square into a circle, and I put someone in a position where they weren't really able to succeed because the expectations were too high, and they couldn't really meet them, and they were kind of like embarrassed about that. So this year, I knew that that was coming up for me as like a leader, as like one of my tasks. So I've definitely been very like realistic with my expectations and my goals. I'm not looking to be the best team in the world right now. I'm looking on working towards being the best, challengers team that is available, in like all the regions, right? So Nismo has helped out a lot with that. The coaches have helped out a lot with that. Really, everybody on the team, including Scuba and Redux, even though he's so young. I mean, he is so mature, and he's just like a really like smart individual. And I definitely want to credit, the people that he's like worked with before. The likes of like Bonkar and stuff like that. Just really set him up for success there. But it really hasn't been too hard. It's just mainly been a thing where I've reflected on what I've done in the past with other players, whether they're just like a normal teammate of mine or someone younger, and I've made sure that like he's having fun, because again, that's like the best form of his gameplay is when he's having a good time and he's enjoying himself.
Out of curiosity, what you said about like looking into the past, what is one occasion where you kind of look back on and where you say, okay, I can use this to help grow Knights and Redux and Scuba?
Um, I mean, without going into too much detail, definitely just my past 2 years in Challengers. I've kind of had expectations that more will be done. People will be a little more selfless. People will care a little more, and it's kind of like bitten me in the ass a little bit. Where I kind of feel like the substitute teacher in a way, where the moment I turn my back, people start like goofing off like in the class, and I just got to understand that everything that I want, everything that I think isn't always going to happen. These are real people with, real feelings, friends, family, this, that, and the other. So I just need to kind of keep them on, the right path rather than kind of like standing, behind them while they're in handcuffs and I'm pushing them forward.
Hmm. Yeah, because like it's one thing to like progress with with a team that is united in one mind, and looking out for each other and all that stuff. But it's another thing to consider when it comes to the team being united, but not really like united, in a sense, united with quotation
Right.
marks, and that can lead to vastly different trajectories for a given team. And like it is something that many people don't really like kind of recognize, or more so look at and consider much more closely. People kind of focus on the victories and the wins and all that stuff and say, okay, here, you see this, and they don't really mention about the behind the scenes aspects. And like and when it comes to like looking at that same kind of deal with the team and the disharmony, once a team does not do well, then we can like then there's like clear focus and clear view of that happening, the discord. And we've seen that happen plenty of times, in VCT America's Tier 1, as myself covering the leagues over the years. And
Right.
like and it's also like um interesting in the sense of just dissecting what's going on within a team. And so like you look at that happen time and time again for yourself. And do you feel like there's what's that word, a constant that affects every team, in which should things don't go right, then it'll just only get worse?
Yeah, I would say that it definitely comes down to goals. There's a lot of people who are here to mess around and collect a little money. I wouldn't even call it good money, a little money. And then there's people who want to be great. There's people who, really, really, really want to get across that like finish line, and they're willing to do like whatever's in their way to do it. And it goes back to the point I said earlier. Everybody is down to talk the talk. Everybody's down to almost like role play, like they care, like they really want to be there, this, that, and the other. But when it comes to putting in the time, when it comes to getting serious, when it comes to the repetition, potentially even being boring, it being hard, not being able to understand it and solve the problems instantly, they're throwing in the white towel. Minecraft's open, Fortnite's open, Overwatch is open, Rust is open. They're not even playing the game anymore, and they're just sitting there waiting for the next opportunity. This one's too hard. I can't figure it out. I'll wait for the next one. It's bad, man.
I know you're just one man, and you can't really speak for the entire scene, from your experience. But I kind of want to ask you from your experience, in tier 2, do you feel like that's always happens, or do you feel like that's like happens much more often than like you want it to be?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say that this has become so open and this has become so easy because of the little amount of people that are playing it that it's just like it's almost how am I trying to say this? I've talked about it before in like a tweet. I think I used the number like 21, maybe 25 respectively. I think there's probably 21 to 25 people who are playing in NA Tier 2 who can make it to Tier 1, and everybody else doesn't really have a chance. They can, really bust their ass consistently for, 9 months, year, 2 year, and maybe make it, but it's kind of a thing where you have or you don't. Hard work and dedication definitely can amplify that. It's not like we've never seen someone who hasn't been the best of the best, make it and get a chance. It's usually coupled down on things like that. But yeah, I really do believe that it's been really watered down to compared to the first year with the amount of organizations and the amount of tier 1 players that were in there the first year. That it's pretty cut and dry. Who's people are aware. Who can get it done and who can't.
And I think one aspect that kind of like plays into that dynamic is the investment, because like as you said, early on in the years we got plenty of orgs trying to get into the Valorant scene with the hopes of maybe getting into the partnership era, and then when it became clear that not many teams would be, or not many orgs would be able to get into tier 1 and all that stuff, then they'd pull out, and that kind of trickles down to tier 2 and tier 3. And we saw this happen plenty of times over the years, in which you see plenty of orgs join in, in the mid table or in the mid part of the season, with the
Mm,
hopes of getting into Ascension to then get into the fight to move up
right,
to tier 1. And then once that doesn't happen, that doesn't work out, then they just pull out, and then the
right,
cycle repeats all over and again. What I'm trying to
exactly.
say to ask you in the context of the question is, how does the infrastructure play into the motivation aspect of players wanting to perform well, practice well, have a good like mindset, etc., for their respective careers.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it is again clear, just clear cut and dry, right in front of you, whether an organization is kind of like using you or not. Um, Shopify Rebellion, my first year playing in or being on a Challengers team, I wasn't playing on the main roster. That was a unbelievable experience. Every single one of my teammates is taken care of. We're taken out to boot camp. We have our own places to live when we're in Toronto. Food is covered. Any question, any help we ever need, they're there. Incredible staff, incredible people. That is an organization I want to see so badly in tier 1. Okay, and I've heard stories of others where it's quite the opposite. You're given a little money, you're floating by, and they're looking to get the clicks, they're looking to get the merch sales, they're looking to get this, that, and the other. So I'd say the passion is like a really like important thing that I would want to see from any type of organization that enters, because if you're in this for the money, or you think that there's some loophole that you can exploit because you have some players who have like a following on your team, you're going to be gravely disappointed, because that's not what it is, right? That's kind of like the whole stick of why people aren't really investing in tier 2 is like, what is it? What does it do? The viewership isn't really like fully there. A lot of people don't really like watch party it. It's more or less like this big kind of like brawl, and like at the end a couple people come out on top, and those people are the ones who, get paid attention to.
No, no, for sure. This definitely provides insights to what's going on within tier two because not many people are more so tuned in to tier two, which is why I'm kind of like more wanting to do these types of interviews with people within the tier two scene. And yeah, like I mean, it brings about a very interesting view as to what's going on in the tier two scene and how that kind of then trickles or more so transitions over to tier one for the teams that are able to ascend and trying to stay up there and yeah. Um, Going back over to the Cubert Academy thing, I want to ask you just sort of like the your coach Dapper because I believe this is first time being the coach of any team. You know, first kind of foray into that position. You know, and also like him being known as like one of the first Valorant World Champions, winning in Masters Reykjavik in 2021. You know, a long time ago since then, and so like. How has that dynamic been like for you as the IGO, you know, having to collaborate and having to work on the strategic planning of your team in challengers? How has that kind of thing been going so far? And what do you think has been one of the biggest thing that stood out to you when it comes to understanding Dapper as the coach?
Well, Mike's energy is just really like contagious when he's having fun and doing things the right way. We all are. Um, and he's someone who can like lead by example. And what I mean is he's kind of like fresh out of the seat as like a player. So what you said, he's won Masters, he's played on Sentinels, he's been there during the Prime era, he's been on G2, he's been on Auction, he's worked through a lot of systems, let alone his Counter Strike experience. So everything that he shared and worked with me on has been extremely valuable, and I don't really know a way to get it, other than that. So I think that's like his big X factor is the way that he articulates his experience, and again can kind of like literally like lead me through like the scenarios because he has the confidence to do so. Right? It's not a situation where he's never been here before, and he's kind of like this, that, and the other testing theory, doesn't really know if it's going to work, yada yada yada. He's been there and he's done that, so he's going to stick to what he knows works and what he knows is good, and he does a good job with it.
I mean, it's interesting looking at his progression as someone covering the media because I remember around Reykjavik and in 2021 when he was a part of the Sentinel squad at that time, he was kind of like the like one of the many vibes merchants within the team. You know, I remember like he would kind of like make jokes alongside with like those like Sick and Shazam and Zom, especially about just kind of like partying and all that stuff. It's
Yeah.
kind of like how it was over there in Sentinels at that time in the early stages of Valorant. And then over the years as he kind of had to move on from Sentinels to G2 Oxygen, trying to return to Tier 1. I feel like I've been seeing a different side of him, a much more mature version of himself. And and it's also like interesting to see him now be a coach, and it kind of gives one the impression that he's matured a lot as an individual, not just like as a coach. For you, how have you kind of viewed that aspect, in terms of like his change of person?
Yeah, I definitely get that vibe from him. It is his first time coaching, so I know that he's like figuring it out as it goes, and I'm just trying to do my best to like balance that. And I think me and him have done a good job so far. Definitely, could be better and will be better. But he does a good job of just getting the point across and trying to hold people accountable, again, especially in the stuff that he like believes in, the stuff that he has like direct experience in. But the transition is like definitely there. He's been excited and he's been like working well on the spot, and I know that if he continues down the path, he's going to be even better with it, just with his again like experience and just like level of like reflection. He's a really, really smart individual, and he just takes himself serious.
What kind of coaching style does he bring? Is he more like a direct or more so strict kind of coach, or is he more like a free flowing collaborative type of coach? How do you kind of look at his style?
I would say that He's kind of like a hybrid of those two, where he isn't like mute and like only speaking up when we like make mistakes. He's definitely like there, almost as like a player, just like kind of like shooting the shit with us, talking about stuff with us, working with us. When we're in server time, he's always kind of like testing us when we're doing our drive runs and stuff like that. He's holding down the bomb site, whatever it is. But he's definitely like a hybrid of those two. He has his moments where he has to raise his voice a little bit, get us back on track, and then there's other times where he's like really open for interpretation, and he's just like flowing with it and just talking about ideas, whatever it might be.
This might be a joke question, but it just kind of hit me right the neck, so I gotta ask. I remember him like making jokes about like White Claw, drinking White Claw during press conferences in Reykjavik. I mean, does he offer White Claw to you?
No, but he jokingly says on Fridays that it's Beer Friday. It's not like he's drinking during practice or anything like that, but he's made jokes about that before. That it's Friday, because usually the Friday scrims would be a little sillier, getting towards like the end of the week for some of these teams that we go up against. We see some funny stuff. Sometimes we do some funny stuff, you know what I mean? But no, he's funny about that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I want to know more about the funny stuff. What else do you guys do like in those like non-serious moments?
Yeah, we're definitely a lot of we throw out a lot of jokes for sure. Just about anything. It could be whatever it is. Mike's got a good one where occasionally he'll go to Chili's and he always gets like a big what is it called? Oh my God, what is it called? That drink with the huge margarita. He always
Okay.
gets a big margarita. We'll send a picture of it and make a joke about Beer Friday, whatever it is. But he's just he's like a good punchline guy. Whenever something like rolls out in front of him, he really makes a good job with it. When he runs with it, the little punchlines and things like that.
It sounds like more so like dad type of jokes for
Yeah,
for for
it's like
me.
opportunistic. Something happens and he'll like make a joke out of it, or like a reference out of it. It's good.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like his and my sense of humor kind of aligns on that. You know, or maybe I have a chance to do a joke with somebody else in due time. But yeah, like definitely interesting to see that evolution of himself in that coaching side of things. I mean, um, like what do you kind of see the potential in him as a coach? Do you kind of feel like he has the potential to like be a top coach, in Valorant or something like that?
I would say so. I think he made a good choice on starting here, because I think if you start at the level when you've never done anything before, because he hasn't even done like an assistant coach before, right? Like this is just as like he's just jumping into it now. It's a good kind of like learning experience, almost like training wheels to a point where you can get away with a lot at the level that we're playing at. It's not like a thing where you're really going to get like killed and like punished. When you do wrong and you lose, like, you can like test things out and work around, especially with the type of personalities that we have like on our team, where we're always going to be like receptive and like give him feedback on stuff that's like going well and like isn't going well, whatever it might be. So again, I would say that with his time here, whatever he learns, learns on things that he thought were good, things that he thought could be better, how he kind of like continues to make his system that he believes in, and just whatever kind of like team he rolls into next, when our time on Cubert is said and done. How much he builds on that, I guess, is a thing, because it isn't necessarily a fresh start in terms of experience, but it is a new experience, right? Being able to like run a practice and a playbook, all this other stuff. It's not something that he did in the past as a player.
Yeah, I feel like he's kind of figuring things out as he goes, as you kind of been saying, and like, you know, in due time, if once he has the experience and the recognition of certain things happening time and time again in a given competition, he can kind of like, build off of that and be a much better version of himself, and also moving that over to the rest of the team, bringing better results on that aspect, and like pivoting the conversation back towards like yourself. I mean, as I kind of been mentioning, and throughout this conversation, you kind of had a pretty long journey to get to this point, playing a lot of years in Tier 2 and having to like go through all of that stuff, being a coach for Shopify Rebellion, as you said, and then getting to this point. So what I want to ask you is sort of your road so far, your journey, how have you viewed your um early stages within competing in this game, and how has that evolution been for you from like those days up until, Shopify and QOR, a little bit of TSM, and up until now?
Well, I will say that the route that I took and the way that I did it, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I did it my way, whether it was efficient or not, and I enjoyed it. I've met so many people. People have supported my stream, people who I've coached my YouTube videos, people I've competed with and against, people I've met at LANs, played with at LANs. It's been a pretty insane experience. Um, but I would say if I was to do it again, I'd definitely try to be like a little more efficient. I've spent a lot of time streaming, a lot of time creating content. I would definitely want to put that more on the back burner and really just like make my sole focus about competing, especially about myself as an individual, and not be so wrapped up in a team dynamic in an area like Tier 3 where I was playing early on, where it isn't really that good of an investment of time. A lot of people jump ship early. At the time, people were getting offers and leaving to do those, and I will never blame someone for that. It's just a fact of the matter, right? So, when you're working on building a system structure with these people and they're leaving within, a few weeks, whatever it is, it's hard when you're resetting, especially as an IGL. A lot of people don't give IGLs credit. Listen, there's there's not a lot of managers, coaches, analysts, assistant coaches down in Tier 3. When you're an
Mhm.
in-game leader, you put in, you get out what you put in. If you're not going to do the hard work, if you're not going to hold your players accountable, if you're not going to spend time working on yourself, working on your team, you're not going to be a good in-game leader. That's kind of just like what it is. You need to have a really good grasp of this stuff. It's not an easy job at all. You don't just roll out of bed, play ranked and scrims and get back in bed after you eat DoorDash. Like it's not an easy task. Um, so yeah, I'd say meeting that more head on than I did in the past would be like a really good thing. But yeah, I've just really enjoyed taking it step by step. I really don't think I'd have like rushed anything. But the main thing that people just underrate is just passion, dedication, hard work. I think those are like three pretty good things that just like describe me as an individual in my time in this game. And I hope that I'm going to be defined by that stuff, later on when I get some more opportunities and I just keep trekking on and on and on.
Going off of what you've been talking about regarding your experiences early on in your career, it kind of gives me the sense that you kind of had to learn very quickly, about the realities of being in Tier 2 and having to like, not try to commit the same mistakes as many other players have done in trying to aspire to get to the top levels. I mean, looking back on it, do you feel like you had to like learn the hard way much more quickly, or
Oh,
did you feel
absolutely.
like you had to learn it like much more slowly?
No, I learned it fast, and it was a thing where I never let it warp my way of how I like viewed people in terms of like myself. I didn't like cut corners. I didn't want to be two-faced. I didn't want to be fake. First team I was ever on, I got mutinied from. We won a tournament. Next week we played. We got second in that same tournament, and some sort of internalized meeting happened where they weren't satisfied with how I did like the pick bands like in the tournament, and we ended up playing split, which we've never practiced, and we
Hmm.
lost. And I got mutinied for that. No talk to me, nothing like that. It was like, damn, okay. There's another point in time early on. I was playing on a team. We just come off a tournament win, a 10K at that, the largest tournament I've ever won. We play a tournament 2 weeks later. We end up exiting playoffs early. I think in like the top 32 or something like that. And my duelist friend, his IGL gets cut from his team, and he immediately pulls one of his friends aside on our team, says, "Hey, this guy's better than TDAWGG right now. We should just get him and move forward." And they get him and move forward. And that tournament win put that team on the radar to get signed by an org. So now this random guy, well, not random, he knows my duelist. He gets kicked from his team. He immediately gets picked up by ours because they kick me, and then they get signed. So it's like, it really is. You got to have your own back out there, and no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to take care of you. And lessons like that And I'm not trying to say, by the way, that I'm like a perfect player or a perfect person, in like these situations. It's just like an unfortunate thing that happens in the game. But those lessons really help me learn, like, okay, you know, I need to focus on a smaller circle and stop trying to, like be stretched too thin, and really just like focus on myself and make sure that when I commit time to people and teams that, it's like a reciprocated energy. I'm not the one who's putting it all in and getting nothing out of it.
Yeah, man, like different like opportunities change people. That always happens in whatever situation you are in. Whether it's in professional Valorant or maybe being like random industries within this role. I mean, you know, when the money is there, it kind of like makes people just think about that, and then they don't really focus on anything else. They just want to get that bag. And I
Absolutely.
mean, it just happens in a way in which it gave you the shitty hand, but obviously you've been able to come back from that, rebound emphatically to where now you're like in tier 2 in Cubert Academy for Sentinels, one of the most popular teams in the Valorant scene, I would say. And yeah, like amidst all of this kind of um how do you say, amidst all of the um that craziness, the tumultuousness of the early days and your progression through the many tiers that you've been a part of in this game, um how have you been kind of been able to maintain that sense of humbleness, that maintain that sense of concentration that helped you, go from team to team, but also in a much more gradual trajectory, from down to up.
Well, I'd say that the things that happened, I definitely never forgot. I tried to internalize that feeling and just make myself work harder and take it more serious. I've been pretty lucky with my support system. My friends in real life are all gamers. They try to pay attention to me, my stream, stuff like that. My community, the dog pack, love everybody who's involved in it. People who watch the stream, videos, interact with me, whatever it is. My girlfriend, definitely been a voice of reason over these years that I've been doing this. I talk to her about the game. I tell her about my teams, this, that, and the other. She helps me out a lot in that. So it really is just, pressing onward because I know that I have people who believe in me. And something I've touched on more recent than late is I've been kind of like tapping into um, hatred a little bit, where it makes me feel good when there are people who don't believe in me,
Mhm.
because I really smile through it, and it makes me happy that they are miserable that I still exist. And I'm going to keep working and getting better and scaling higher and higher and higher. And they're going to keep crying and complaining, whatever it is, and it's just gonna make me even better. So I definitely try to involve myself in both.
Love and hate goes hand in hand, I would say, and I feel like this occasion rings very true for you. As much hate as you receive, no, as much love as you receive from your support system, which is definitely good. I feel like that same amount of hate can kind of like push you to even bigger heights, because you want to spite you want to get back at those people that kind of wronged you, right? You kind of have that
Absolutely.
motivation.
Yeah. It's not a thing that I do for anybody else. I do it for myself at the end of the day, but it's just kind of like it's just a nice thing to remember, and to make myself work harder, make myself stay serious, stay true, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, now kind of focusing on just sort of like the the road ahead. And when I say road ahead, it's more so just sort of focusing on building on what you have been uh, uh, creating so far in your current team. And I want to ask you just sort of like your expectations for, the team for stage 2 in the 2025 season. I want to ask you just more so like yourself, and you know you kind of mentioned early on in the conversation about like how you feel like your VCT Tier 1 ready. You can kind of paraphrase if I'm wrong there, but how do you kind of look at your remaining steps that you have to take to finally get to finally have you be in a position where teams can look at you and say, "Hey, let's pick up TDAWGG. He's been kind of improving himself."
Yeah. So the first thing is with our fourth place finish, the bar is very low. It was, like I said, embarrassing the fact that we went out how we did. And with the bar being low, it's going to be easy to surpass a statement like that. But we set it high, right? It's just more of a result based thing where it's low, but we set it high. We want to be the best. We're trying to work like we're the best, and it's just again day in and day out. We're working for each other. We're working for ourselves. It's not for anybody else. And at the end of the day, when the results speak for themselves, we want to win whatever it is, the stage 2, the playoffs, stage 3, the playoffs. We want to be the team who finishes at the top. And everybody is sitting there arguing, saying, "You're lucky Cubert didn't get to go to the event. You're lucky Cubert isn't at the event." Because that's kind of like what it should be. We're on the first ballot here, right? To be honest with you, I wish I could go to the event. I would love to play, especially the other regions. I think that's really cool. And I haven't been able to do that yet. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? We're the first ballot, and it's in our hand right now. The ticket to VCT, and there's a bunch of people standing behind us that are going to try to grab it. So if we want to sit on our ass and not take it serious, they're going to grab it. That's how it works. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But we need to be both. We're all very talented, and we just need to take it serious and work hard. Take it day by day, week by week, and just be the best individuals we can be.
Out of curiosity, given your repeated statements about like getting to a LAN, when was the last time you've been in a LAN?
The last LAN that I went to was the HyperX Spike Drop in 2023. It was October, I believe. I played at that event with Core. It was in the off season. It was building up to the qualifier, and we ended up winning that. It was a 15K, I think. It was at the Luxor in Vegas. It was a very cool time, and it was very important for that team that we were able to do that in the off season, and we were able to build chemistry and a dynamic of just like togetherness, because I think that's a huge thing that brought us across the finish line in terms of qualifying last year.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's plenty of players in this scene that that have not been able to compete in an actual LAN, and there's very even fewer players that have been able to do that, and much less like in a non VCT setting, and like you know I can definitely see that you are very motivated to try to get to a LAN, and unfortunately, it might not happen with Cubert being an academy team and not
Right.
being able to fight for an ascension. But like, um, I feel like I feel like with the team having you as the IGL, that time will eventually come, or maybe it might come for you like in another team. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what the future might hold. But what I am for certain is that over the years you've been able to progress in a very good way, and having to get to tier 2 very close to tier 1, and somewhere down the line hopefully you're able to make that happen. And I do say this with various or a lot of sincerity and a lot of honesty. And so I mean, we're approaching the hour mark, so I don't want to spend too much of your time because I do understand it's pretty late over there. So I'm gonna wrap it up here at this point for the interview. To you, dog, I gotta give you my thanks for giving me the opportunity for the conversation, the insights, and all of that good stuff that I haven't mentioned at the end. Oh, got one more question to ask you. Not really more a question, but more so like a request for a message you want to drop to anyone that you felt like they should learn one more thing about about yourself and the things that you've been able to learn throughout your career.
Um, when I say this phrase that I don't take any days off, it's something that's associated with work or a job, but this is my passion. This is something that I love, so it's not work and a job. It's a privilege to be able to show up every day and play and try to get better, no matter how little or how much I do in the day. That'll be something that anybody can hold me to. Is that I don't take any days off.
For sure, and hopefully, the viewers and everybody else can take this and use it to for their own journeys, whether it is in professional Valorant or not. Hopefully, you guys can learn this for yourself. So, TDAWGG, thank you so much for the opportunity for the interview. Like I said before, thank you so much for all the answers. I've been Pedro Romero, and I'll see you guys in the next one.